Hi, welcome to Carolina Crafting. I'm Jackie Jentz. Today we're going to visit Charlotte Norton. Charlotte's a spinner. We're in Beaver Dam, North Carolina, out in the woods. I just love this place. There's so many cool places. You go any nook, cranny, hollow, and you're going to find a crafter or an artist. This is like the best place in the world to be. Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what you're going to do. This is something I know absolutely nothing about. And it's so cool what you end up doing. Explain from beginning to end for me.
Okay, I'm a little different than some spinners because I usually go to the barns and I try to use local farmers here. There are a lot of people that have herds of llamas, sheep, they've got the mohair goats, the Angora rabbits. All those fibers I use in my products. Today I brought some here. This came from a little sheep in Martin's Creek. This came from the Lydon's farm.
I live out near Martin's Creek.
In '89, I took my first spinning class at the John C. Campbell Folk School. Martha Lydon, or Owen as she's called, she keeps her maiden name, Martha Owen has the sheep. And so I try to get a lot of wool from her sheep. This came from her farm. It's really soft, it's fluffy, it has been washed, because a lot of times when I get the wool off the sheep, it's at shear day or just been sheared and the wool is still warm from the sheep's body heat.
Does it have the oily?
Very oily lamb.
I've heard that.
Because when the sheep are out and it's raining, the water just bounces right off the wool, just like you spray Scotch Guard on something.
Oh, cool.
They've got their own Scotch Guard. And that's why it's so comfortable to wear a wool hat when you're skiing, because it doesn't really get wet.
Oh.
The snow will lay on top of it, but inside towards your head is, you're dry. And all you have to do is shake it off. So that's the way the sheep are. They just shake it off and they go on. There are different colors.
This is fascinating. Look at
this
the
came
colors.
from Martha's too. This is a natural, it's Cordell. Cordell, and it's Cordell Merino Cross. Those are two breeds of sheep that they have bred together, and that's why they call it a cross.
When you put it down to yarn, is it variegated, or is it just all the dark?
When I go ahead and I card the wool out in a fiber like this, so it's easily to spin. It's not really variegated because it's almost blended together when you start carding. But what you can do is separate different areas out, lighter, darkest, and you can make it variegated that way.
That would be cool.
And here's another one. This is another color. Look at this. Look how different this is than the brown.
Ooh,
and now you can get a lot of colors. A lot of times I'll blend the dark and then I'll put small pieces of light on top to make it variegated. Just like this one here.
Oh yeah.
This is what I did. I used the white and then I laid the brown in pieces and carded it. And that, when I spun it, you can see they're all different colors all the way down.
That'd make a great sweater.
Now this is what I used here. This color here is going on the edging of the circular shawl. There is some mohair, kid mohair, blended into this edge, and you can see how you've got kind of like a halo effect.
Oh yeah.
Now once it's washed and blocked more, you'll get more of a halo. Sometimes people brush it with their hand back and forth to get that little halo up, but I think just using it from day to day will bring it up without, really stressing the fiber.
What's
now
the fuzzy one?
This is the kid mohair. This is from a little baby Angora goat.
Aww.
And see, look at all the little curls. Almost like a perm.
It is.
It's almost like a little perm. This one has a little better curl here. If you've ever seen a little girl with curly hair, then that's just the way the little goats look.
Aww.
They're so cute. Now this has been washed. When I get my wool, I have to wash it, and I wash it in Dawn dishwashing detergent because it gets
The grease
rid
goes
of
away.
the grease.
Yeah,
Right.
cool.
And I soak it in real hot water. Then I take it out, and then I rinse it and try to rinse it in the same temperature of the water that I washed it in, because anytime you have temperatures go from hot to cold to hot, you're going to start felting. It's going to start felting. And if you've ever had a wool sweater and it got thrown in the washing machine, you know what happens when it felts. You lose all your stitches, it shrinks up, and it's like a mat. Okay, also I take my white wool and I dye it different colors. I use the natural dyes. And I wrote down a little bit here to explain some of this. The red, I use chrome. And it is potassium, it's hard to say that word, potassium distamite. And they're orange crystals. And in order to dye this wool, you've got to use a mordant. And the mordant can be chrome, alum, all different things. But what this mordant does is that you take your white wool and you want to soak it in the mordant. And that makes it color fast. That makes it catch that dye, that color, when you put it in the dye. So you have to mortar it first, put it in the dye. After you get the dye the color you want, of course it's just like anything else, like an Easter egg. The longer you leave it in the dye, the darker it's going to be.
Do you have to rinse it to set it?
Then you have to rinse it, and then I just lay it out on screens and let it dry outside.
Oh wow.
Okay, the process of spinning. What you want to do is, once you have washed your wool, then you want to card it. And I have a big drum carder that I feed in the wool into, turn the crank, and on the sides are like teeth. And it's like a big comb or brush. It just constantly moves around and around and around. And what it does, instead of getting a glob like this, it aligns the fibers and opens them up so that you can spin easily. It's like if you made a braid for your hair, you'd have a better braid, and it'd be easier to braid if you brushed your hair first. Well, it's the same way with spinning. If you card it, the more times you card it, the easier it's going to be to work, and the nicer yarn that you'll have. Now, when you spin, this spinning wheel is constantly twisting and pulling into the spinning wheel. What's holding the twist back are my fingers here. So you have a spinning triangle, and you can see it right here. I'm holding the twist back. The fatter the triangle, once the twist grabs it, the fatter the wool will be. So, if I wanted to spin very, very fine wool, I would pull it out just as fine as I could. So you can almost see through that. And that makes a very, very fine wool. If I wanted a thicker wool, then I would pull it out and make my triangle a lot bigger. And you can see how that grabs the wool. And you could, as long as the wool is, the fibers are only, hang on just a second, the fibers are a certain length. Some wool has real long fibers, some have short. So that when you start spinning, you can't really go past the length of those fibers or it'll break. So you've got to constantly be aware how long your fibers are, and pull and pull and pull, and let this twist grab and twist, and then it goes right into the machine. The way you start and stop is not very hard. What you want to do is, this is the spun area and this is the unspun area. So you're going to attach your wool to the unspun area. So you're going to open the unspun area up like this. You're going to lay a small portion of your carded wool, and it's going to lay on top of the spun area, and then this unspun area is going to be incorporated back here, so that when you start spinning, you're going to pull it out, catch it there, pull it out, and away you go. And you can spin all the way out like this. and twist it with your hands. You can feel with your hands if it's ready, if it's spun enough. It's all feel. You could probably do this with your eyes closed, but I wouldn't suggest doing that until you've spun a while. Now see, I've got some little areas here. These are called second cuts, and I don't really want that in my yarn. If I stop right now, I can take my finger and pull those off. Second cut is when a shear comes down with his shears, and instead of making one clean sweep, he stops and comes up, stops and comes up, and that makes those little balls. You can always tell when you get wool how great a shearer you've got, because if somebody says, well, I've got sheep, I'm just going to shear my sheep and I'll give you some wool. Well, that doesn't usually work, because they cut it here, cut it here, cut it here, cut it here, and then you've got nothing but a little mass of balls. You want your yarn to be real smooth. Here's another second cut. You can see this one right here. And if you stop and just take your finger and pull it off, you've got a nice straight yarn. I've been spinning since '89 and I love it. A lot of people say, well, it takes so much patience. I am one of the people that, a lot of people, what they do is that they learn how to knit, and they've knitted all their lives and they want to know how to spin. Well, I didn't know how to knit, so I had to learn how to spin and how to knit. But I have found that it's the most relaxing thing that I can do. I enjoy talking about the animals. A lot of times I'll mention the sheep's name in different parts of the hat. Sometimes there's 3 different kinds of sheep in one hat. It's fun to do the fibers, the mohair, the Angora bunny. There's all kinds of fur out there. So many people stop me at festivals and say, I have a dog or a cat, can you make me a hat? Well, you really can't get enough fiber off those animals unless it's a husky or something, and they would have to brush and brush and brush for years and save it and then mail me the fiber. But what you can do is get enough fiber to spin a little bit of yarn, so that when you are making them a hat or they're knitting a hat, they can put an area in like this small brown streak through. That can be their kitty or their dog. And I do that a lot for people, and it's a lot of fun. Of course, I tell them they must wash their animal, shampoo it good before they give me the fiber. I usually stick with wool because it's exciting. It's exciting to go to the farms, see the animals, meet the people that raise the animals, go through the whole process of what it was really like for women in the 1800s with all those children, with all that work of carrying the wood in and cooking and making the clothes and all they did. They still had time enough, or made time, to shear the sheep, card it, spin it, knit it. And I think today women couldn't do it. We say, oh, we've got so much to do in our lives. Oh, how are we going to do it all? Oh, poor me. But we are really fortunate how much time we do have in our lives. And sometimes you wonder whether we should really step back and start doing some of these things again. The old ways are not old, they're tried and true. And I think with each generation you need to start back and examine these ways and try to incorporate some of them in your life, because it's very important to know your roots. And in these mountains, these artists, we do know our roots.
Charlotte, thanks so much. I have learned so much today, and I know you're going to let me take this home because I've been playing with it, looking at the threads and stuff. It's just amazing. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge, and I know you make dolls. Can we come back and do another show with you another time?
Sure can.
Oh, yay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks.